It's like Nancy Reagan. And I texted that when I finished reading that because I'm like, really, Nancy? Really? And I won't tell you what it's about. But as soon as I read that, I texted Matt. I was like, because you feel like John is like a hero. Like he's someone that you I feel like I know John. I'm like, oh damn, really?
Welcome to another great episode of Dre and Smiley, the Inner Circle Podcast.
Dre, we've had a lot of podcasts, and we actually had some people come back. We have Matt Snider coming back. Remember, he was our expert in manufacturing. He knows everything about plants and technology. During our last podcast, near the end, he was telling us he was writing a book. Well, he's written that book, Dre, and now he and his lovely wife are back on our podcast to talk about this book. And just to set the stage for it, it's something that happens so often, but it's like that untold secret, the family secret. It's almost like it's a taboo, and it's difficult conversation. So this is going to be a different podcast for us because we're going to just have a conversation about something that affects us all, but no one really talks about. I'm going to turn it over to Matt and welcome Matt and Jacey to the show. So if Matt and Jacey can tell us about this amazing book. I just received it this morning. I couldn't put it down. I read 10 chapters and I don't want to steal their thunder, but Matt and Jacey, if you could tell us about this challenging topic, this is impacting everybody.
Well, thanks for the intro, Kevin. Yeah, my wife and I have been in kind of the fortunate or unfortunate situation where she's been along for the ride for a lot of particularly tragic events. And what we're here to talk about today is suicide. It is something that is deeply, deeply tied to my family history. I lost a grandma, I lost my dad, and I've had a few other members of my family as well. And so it is, my immediate family has been deeply impacted. And it's a subject that, when you lose your dad at 19, like I did 20 years ago, I get a phone call, a bunch of phone calls, and then I get a pounding on my door, calls I'm not answering, get that pounding on the door, someone coming in and announcing this to me. My mom at the time came in and announced this, and it's just a weird thing to recognize in the moment. It takes a lot of time to process these types of things, but then the natural conversations come. How did your dad die? You're 19. Dads don't die when you're 19, right? So it invites a lot of conversation. And then I find myself in this situation where I'm like, okay, how much of the truth do you want? And so, I wrote an open letter in the beginning of the book. And I think that letter kind of conveys a lot of the conversation that I really have struggled to have for the last 20 years. But you bring it up at like a coffee shop or a dinner table. People start looking for the exits. It's a really difficult thing for them to even process. And so, Jacey, 2 weeks into our relationship, June of 2005, we are, young, hanging out, just learning, just meeting each other, really. But obviously, we like each other. We've seemed to make it work. We're still here, sitting here 20 years later. But my dad calls me on the phone, and he says, we're sitting at a park. She and I are on the swings, and we're just kind of messing around and, just having a good time. It's a summer evening in Oklahoma. It's probably 150 degrees, really warm, but it is just a nice night. I answer the phone. I'm like, that's my dad. Pick up, put it on speakerphone, and typical conversation for my dad. He was a high-functioning alcoholic. He was a very, very gifted with words, very much a people person, much more so than myself. And he starts, just going through his day, going through all the random stuff, and then he's like, I got to tell you something. I'm like, okay, this is typical for a conversation with a high-functioning alcoholic father. I got to tell you something. I'm like, all right, what could it be? It can't be that bad. Jacey and I are just sitting there on the swings, and he's like, your grandma, you don't know how she died. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't know how she died. I'm like, she died in 97. She died, she had emphysema. It was a terrible situation. I completely understand that. No, your grandma slit her wrists. And at that point, I look over at JC and I'm just like, well, she's gone. This is over.
You're like, JC, come back. It gets better, I promise.
So he proceeds to tell me that my uncle. So if you look at the title of our book, it is My Darlin John. My Uncle John is the only character we did not scrub. He's the only character we pretty much authentically built. But my uncle walked in to my grandma's art studio and found her. And he lived the rest of his 25 years up until 22 when JC and I took him off of life support in the hospital. He lived isolated, alone. He spent about seven and a half, almost 8 years in prison, and then lived in his same place for the rest of his days in just an absolute time warp, a time capsule of his own making, if you will.
So, I will go back to the beginning too, because, this is an interesting thing to talk about for us. It's been in the making for 20 years. So it's a lot of reliving a lot of memories and really important ones. We were discussing this recently, but, I very clearly remember sitting on some swings with my new boyfriend, a ripe 18-year-old girl about to go to college. And he answers the phone with his dad. And first of all, I'm like, why is he answering the phone? Like, we're on a date. Come on. But overhearing this conversation, immediately my thought was, oh, like I'm listening to something really significant about people that I don't know. And I felt some form of heaviness towards that. But it was also this like gut understanding that I know now, and I can speak on this 20 years later. It's like I knew that I wanted to be around these people, that I needed to know this story. I needed to kind of hold account to what had happened. So I'm very in touch with my feelings, and we make a really good team, and now we've given birth to this book, which is really about what has happened in a family legacy of his family, and I've been kind of alongside for it. But it gives you chills. We're just here wanting to share this and to express to people that I don't know, you need to show up in your everyday life, and every moment is important. So we're here doing that now. So
I love that. I love hearing that, Jacey and Matt, for a number of reasons. Suicide is not talked about enough in our communities, right? And so this book kind of breaks that silence, which is great. It kind of, in my mind, I think it's a great opportunity to start the discussion around suicide and what it looks like, things like that. One thing I'm noticing as you talk about it, Matt, and you, JC, is your level of comfort, right? Grief is tough. It's been 20 years or so, but still, it's tough. It's something that kind of stays with you. Talk to me about how. I want to go deeper into the book in just a moment, but talk to me about what the impact of hearing about your father passing at such a young age, what that impact was for you, and how you've managed through that for 20 years. Were you drinking? Or were you just crying on JC's shoulder every night? Like, what's the secret?
Oh, man. There was plenty of drinking. Honestly, the thing that, I don't know, The thing about going to a funeral and, you know, speaking at your dad's funeral, after he's made the decision, right? He has taken his own life, in a split second decision that, you know, you can't say one way or the other whether or not he might regret that decision today. You can't say he would have made it again. You can't say he wouldn't have made it 3 months later or 3 months earlier. The fact of the matter is it was a decision, and some decisions you can't come back from. And so that to me is kind of how I process a lot of information. I'm hyperlogical. I kind of have the emotional intelligence of, you know, a snail half the time, and so that can be, it can come across as I'm a little bit indifferent sometimes, and I don't ever want to convey that. But that is, you know, that's the spectrum kid in me. That's the autism. That's not really the subsurface emotions that are there. And so processing that grief is something that, at a particular time in my life, where the last conversation I had with my dad, the day of, it was his birthday, and I asked him to co-sign on a loan for me, because I had $0. I had no financial support other than myself, and I was in college, you know, dead broke, spending way more money than I could possibly afford.
Like every college student.
Like every college, you know, and it was just one of those situations where I didn't have a whole lot of time to sit there and process. I did take the semester off. I did end up dropping out that semester and buying a motorcycle and doing a bunch of dumb stuff. I hung out with my wife a lot, and she absolutely has guided me through this kind of healing journey. And it's not something that I really picked up on until many, many, many years later, but that's what she's been helping me do, is process all of the things. And so, and we do it through talking. She and I sit out pretty much every night. We play chess together. We sit out on the patio. We hang out, talk. We put the kids down, and that's where we kind of do the hard work. And that's, more than anything, has been one of my favorite contributions from Jacey in the book writing process, is guiding me on that healing journey.
Yeah.
Mention healing. As part of healing, you know, because I think about, you know, I try to insert myself in these stories that we hear from people that come on the podcast. I'm trying to think about, you know, the impact it would have on me of my father committing suicide, then later hearing my grandmother commit. I wonder, for me, I feel like I might start second guessing myself. Like, I might fear that I might try to unknowingly slip into that. So as part of the healing journey, did you guys like go through any therapy or anything like that? Talk to me about where therapy fits into that, if it does.
Silence breeds shame, and that's why we're here talking. And so, you know, it can be a little shocking a little bit to hear us speak about things that are so serious, but we really have, you know, been on a healing journey. I myself, like, that's what I was made to do, is to help people heal. And, you know, through this, that's kind of what I've seen. And that is a lot of where I come into this. It's like I have been, you know, talking in his ear and making him talk about things and processing the emotions from this. So regarding therapy, I don't know, have you ever been to?
I've been to a few.
Yeah.
And the problem with therapy for me, as is the case for a lot of people, is your willingness to commit to doing the work. And it took many, 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 many years for me to be more willing to commit to do the work, right? There's a lot of things in my own head that I've got to reconcile. There are a lot of things, you know, again, the last conversation I had with my dad, whom I loved very much, was asking him for money. Did I contribute to his own decision making, right? Like, is that something that is healthy to even think or discuss or, you know, broach with somebody? Probably not for me at the time. Probably not for me within 5 years of that time. But the more conversations that we did have, and through kind of sharing stories amongst other groups and communities, that is how we developed more of our confidence around, hey, this is something that we want to turn into a functional conversation piece. This is something we want to help, again, bear it all. Here's our vulnerability, right? Like, I've got several members of my family spelled out in this story that it's the God's honest truth. That's all there is to it, right? The words written in the book are real. The situations in the book are real. Some of it's sensationalized for the narrative. Some of the, things get changed a little bit. Some of the details, but the gravity, the real nature of what happened, that really happened. And so this to me is part of the therapy. And so putting it all on paper, having you guys read it, having people, be happy about reading it, having people be sad about reading it, having people, have a lot of mixed emotions when they read it, having people that know the story pretty well have to pick it up and put it down because they're not quite here yet. And I think that is another reason that we'll be sending the link to this podcast to all those people.
There you go. There you go.
Well, since I did read a few chapters, I want to jump into the book, and it's all with respect and deference. But I love the way that you started, and I won't tell the theme, but I love the way you started with Uncle John, because with the version I received, I didn't see the book cover that you had there, and I didn't really see the title. And when you showed the book cover, I was like, oh, because John sets the stage for so many things, and I just thought that was clever how. Just like, fuck Nancy Reagan. And I texted that to John when I finished reading that, because I'm like, really, Nancy? Really? And I won't tell you what it's about. But as soon as I read that, I texted Matt. I was like, because you feel like John is like a hero. Like, he's someone that you I feel like I know John. I'm like, oh, damn, really? And then it's just like, man, this is well written. Did you take classes in anticipation of this, or you just inner geniuses?
Let me tell you the honest truth about the writing element of this. At my dad's second funeral in 2005, we had a funeral in Dallas. My dad moved to Dallas when I was 6, and so we had a kind of a initial service down there. But then we had his primary service in Oklahoma City, and we ended up burying him next to his dad in the same cemetery that he was buried in. And at the end of that is the only time I saw my uncle between 97 and 2022. So the one time in 25 years that I saw my uncle, he handed me an MLA writing style guide that was my grandpa's. And it was like an original from 1954. I mean, it's like an absolutely antique thing. There's no way it holds up, right? The language has changed since then. We use ain't now. There's all of that stuff. And he handed this book to me at the funeral as my dad is being lowered into the earth. And it was... it just resonated. It was just weird. And from that moment on, I'm like, I'm going to do something with this. And I don't know what this is, and I don't know what this will be. But from that moment on, I was very convinced that I would be writing some version of a book. And I didn't take any classes. I'm a science and math person through and through. I tend to be reasonably well versed in writing, just because I've done a lot of technical writing and all of these things. But at the end of the day, it was a story that I think wants to be told, and we really feel like putting the honest work into it and the kind of real touch on it helps shape the book itself.
I think because I've had elderly members in my family pass and you have to go clean up the house and get rid of their stuff. And the words you use made me feel like I was in the room again. And you're like, the lines on the wall. Everyone who grew up in grandma's house got the lines on the wall. They see theirs. So the way you incorporated stuff that just made you immerse you in that scene, or even when I won't tell it. I won't tell, but the way you tie certain things at the beginning of the chapter and bring it to closure with the fire, with the F Nancy Reagan and all this stuff, it's like, oh, you're planting a little breadcrumb here, and then you tie it all together that creates the intrigue to get to the next chapter. But one thing that I want to bring up, that in the book, you mentioned that your grandfather died the same day as the co-founder, or did the co-founder die of suicide too, or does that come up later, or
No,
so it's a coincidence they both died on the same day?
it's a very odd story.
Yeah.
Very odd story.
It's all
but
true.
Actually, go to fellersnider.com. Go to fellersnider.com and you can read that story.
Okay.
His firm is still active today in Oklahoma, and so almost 30 years after he died, him and Fellers, and so they died on the same day. It was a really odd day. My grandpa died from basically a routine operation, changing a pacemaker battery. And then Mr. Fellers died just natural causes. And so he was...
Wait a second. I'm at the edge of my seat here. You guys have this story. This sounds like it's, compelling. I got to hear this story. What's the summary?
At the end of the day, this is a story about a family that is deeply, deeply involved with each other's lives. They're enmeshed in a way that is, I would say, borderline unhealthy. But they love each other. Absolutely freaking love each other, man. Just one of the most loving families. Everything that you read about, the quote unquote American dream, which, don't get me started on that. I can go a whole different direction there, but, very successful, very, in tune with their communities, very much involved in all of the different things. My uncle John, he did session work for some large bands. Like he played the drums for the Doobie Brothers. Like just very interesting, like people that were hyper talented and almost don't seem real. And to be honest, my grandma, she was a superhero. And this book is as much about her legacy as anything, because she carried on the tradition of, letter writing and note writing. Same as my grandpa. Every occasion, no matter if it's, like St. Patty's Day or my birthday or Christmas or whatever, I'm getting handwritten notes from these people, right? And I do that to this day. I'm almost 40. I still write handwritten notes. I write handwritten notes to Jacey's grandparents. And it's just one of those weird traditions. But my grandma wrote this series of notes to my uncle, who was constantly in trouble. You've read the first bit of the book, Kevin. He was a troublemaker of a human being.
I think the listeners, he's like a character that you want him to be on your side. Can you tell him the X-Lax story? I was holding, my wife is like, what are you laughing at? She's like, you said it was about suicide. I was like, but this John character, she's like, I don't want to hear about that. Because I said, well, he had X-Lax, and then she's like, I don't want to hear about that. I was like, all right. But that was the funniest thing. I'm like, you're supposed to, like, it's a roller coaster, because you're reflective, you're pondering, then it's inquisitive, it's spiritual, because even they threw in the religious part, like they talked about God says if you kill yourself, it's a sin and all this. So all these different emotion comes on. Then he throws in an X-Lax line, and you're just like laughing. So it's it's the emotions are there.
We try to lighten it up a little bit, like we really do. And there are a lot of parts in there. You'll get further in the book. There's some more comedic elements, but yeah, the X-Lax story. My uncle Oh man, he got kicked out of
Jacey's
every
shaking her
school.
head. Why are you shaking your head?
Humor in it. I mean, tell the X-Life story, and then I'm gonna tell the closet story.
Well, okay, all right.
Okay, great. I love it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so you were the one in the closet.
Closet.
Because I have a question of how long did you stay before you realized he wasn't coming back?
Okay.
Same question, Kevin.
Okay. So we'll do X-Lax and then closet. Okay, that sounds good.
My uncle had, and my dad and aunt, all three very close in age, but very similar friend groups in their neighborhood. They had this friend group in their neighborhood, and my uncle was routinely like the leader, the mischievous guy, the one that was willing to tip the porta potty over on the door, right? Like he was the one that would wait for you to go inside, close the door, and then tip it on the door. Like that's the guy my uncle was. All in good fun,
Yeah.
but it had some destructive consequences. They had this group of friends over, and he loaded up some baked goods with some X-Lax, and he locked all the bathroom doors. They live on large property acreage that you cannot get quickly to your next door neighbor, or if you live 10 houses down the road. And so there was quite a mess in the hallway that they all had to yeah, and so no, that might have been a crime. My uncle might have
In a
committed.
meticulously clean house, and we talk about how important
Yeah.
cleanliness is.
I like your Uncle John. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
He knew how to live, that's for sure.
He was a
Yeah.
character for sure.
Yes.
So,
And the closet story was the other one. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, we can laugh about it now, and I can speak about it, but at the time, this was very, very hard for me. So there are a lot of religious components in this book. We are from Oklahoma. It is very, it was very important to our upbringing and the way, especially the way I was. So at the time, this was really hard to deal with, but we were pretty early in our relationship, and I had just started college, and we both lived in Norman, Oklahoma, going to OU. And I stayed over one night, as you do with your partner. And the morning that we hear this bang, 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 Matt, Matt, Matt. And it's like, I wake up kind of, and I'm just like terrified, like someone's going to find me at my boyfriend's house. So we just like stuff me in the closet, and now it's my mother-in-law, who's one of my best friends. And so I hide. I'm hiding in the closet as my poor boyfriend has his mom come to the door, I distinctly remember this. It was so traumatic. I was in the closet peeking out through the slats, and she's helping him like grab clothes, and I had no idea what was happening. I just knew I was going to stay in the closet, and she took him with her, took him back home to go and experience, the trauma and talk about this at the time, and I was left in the closet. So he completely left town, and I'm like, oh crap, I've got to get to math. Like I was new in college. So I think I came out and I like yelled at his roommates. I'm like, is anybody going to campus? I don't know. It's very
Then they have cell phones back then, so he couldn't text you or call you or anything.
Well, no, we had cell phones. We had cell phones.
Yeah, okay.
But it was an entire day, because again, it was the worst day of his life, and that's where I was, just witnessing just the worst day of somebody's life and trying to figure out, well, what do we do? What do we do about this? What do we do now? How do you live? How do you, it was absolutely so heartbreaking, and it is. And, we carry that with us, but it's our life, and we have to do something with it. And so if you talk to us now, it's just like we know without a doubt, we have to share these stories. We have to share these characters. Going back to the book and talking about John, who, this has been a 20-year story, as we've been talking about. Seeing John in 2022, which kind of began the story again after all this healing. We saw him, and he needed Matt at the time, and I'll let you talk about that, seeing him. but I would really like to talk about his apartment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if we can shift subjects into
Yeah.
why we wrote the book. So, all this is fun to talk about, right? Like everyone loves the subject matter. Legitimately, I we get notified that my uncle is in the ICU in 22. Um, Jacey and I are in Oklahoma. We're close to the hospital. We just so happen to be readily available to go up there, and I spent, a couple weeks kind of dealing with my uncle in the ICU. There were a lot of cognizant moments. When I first got there, he was intubated. He couldn't speak, and then he showed some signs of progress. They took the intubation, or they took the tube out. He was breathing on his own again, but he's still on an ECMO machine. The ECMO machine it does the work of your heart, right? Recirculates blood, oxygenates blood, does all the things. It's nice. If you could live forever if you had one just attached to your body. But he was on that. Came to. We got to talking about a bunch of stuff. We had some good times. Right before people die, they tend to have some sort of cognitive resurgence. Well, I say that the people that I've seen do, and he did. And so he was very lucid. We talked about old times. We talked about some stories. We talked about my dad. We talked about some interesting conspiracies that he had about my dad, including that my dad did not kill himself. And so it's just one of those things that these conversations were really interesting. But also, I had not seen my uncle since my dad's funeral, and so there's this element of just guilt, right? He is my blood. He looks like me. Dude looks like me. Like you're just walking to the hospital and they're like, yeah, that's your relative. It's pretty stark. So we get to talking, and I kind of ask him where he lives, and he lives a quarter mile from my mom's mom, who we see once a week at a minimum. We go to her house. We're there all of the time. And so we get this, like, oh my God, like he's been here the whole time. We could have picked him up. We could have brought him over. We could have done these things, but we didn't know much of this at the time, right? We kind of knew his whereabouts. My aunt had kept loose contact, but my aunt passed away very suddenly in April, and we were not sure of the cause. And that was kind of his last primary contact. And so I became his, legal guardian and power of attorney, and had to make end of life decisions for him after rekindling that relationship. So Jacey and I volunteered to go to his apartment, which he had lived in forever. And we wanted to, pick up some things. We knew that his last day was coming. We knew we were going to take him off of life support, and we thought it would be good to have, some mementos or some things to usher him to the other side, right? And so we walk into the apartment and just immediately are just dumbfounded. I see my grandma and my grandpa's chairs that were sitting in their living room, their couch, their desk, their table, their coffee table, their end tables. My grandma and grandpa shared an ashtray. They sat in these two big wingback armchairs, and they shared an ashtray because they both smoked heavily for, from the time they were 13 to the time they died. And in the ashtray is burnt out cigarettes that have my grandma's lipstick on it.
Wow.
From 97. This is 25-year-old cigarette butts that have been preserved in this time capsule that my uncle has been living in for however many years, 17 years. And so we proceed into the dining room, and just sitting at the table there's a chair here, and then around the table, it's a circular table. There's a picture of my grandpa facing this way, a picture of my grandma facing this way, a picture of my aunt facing this way, a picture of my dad facing this way, all staring at my uncle. And it was just a very just powerful moment that we were just like, he has been suspended in this place since that day in 97. Like, since he found my grandma, he had just been stuck. And that was effectively the birth of the story.
It's there's so much to unwrap, and I feel, Dre, when you read the book, or I'm going to finish it. I told Matt I'm going to finish it before Saturday, and might finish it tonight. I mean, it's just because I don't want to spill the beans on the book, but when you say that was the catalyst for it, but the one thing that I think is that's really powerful from the book, and I wrote it down. It says, "There we will all be together in our dreams." And I love the way your grandma said that to the kids when she put them to sleep. So in their mind, I mean, it was like an indoctrination before they went to sleep. There we will be all together in our dreams. That is such a powerful statement that, John, you start the book off with, and then you bring it back in a little bit. And when I finish the rest of it, I'm intrigued to see what happens with the rest of that. But
I'll tell you, it is the last words of the book also.
when you look at the incidents of suicide during this time, did you get into the statistics of suicide? Or say, for example, when I grew up, everything was, no one blamed it on mental health. Or actually they was like, oh, he had to be crazy, he killed himself. Oh, he wants to live in hell with Satan because he killed him. I mean, you got old deep Baptist religious type of things,
Selfish, all the
selfish, or
Selfish.
why would he kill himself? He had a good job. Why would he kill himself? He had a good job. He has money.
Had money, had a family.
Yeah, it's just like everyone on the outside, we can't really understand what people are going through. But in your research, did you find anything that says it really happens equally over all socioeconomic status and professions and
100%.
culturals or even countries or races? It seems like it's
100%. And actually, there are cultures where it is more of a dignified death. And there have been times and periods throughout history. There are also obviously religious martyrs. There are things where people do celebrate the act of suicide. And at the end of the day, it's suggested that 1 in 5 people are affected by suicide, have somebody near and dear to them or pretty close to them, a neighboring relative, a adjoining relative, something. But 800,000 people a year, all walks of life, all different socioeconomic statuses, races, cultures, creeds, all of the things are affected by suicide. And the one thing that I circle back on is just how infrequent the conversation comes up. And that to me is because of all of these things, right? There are so many stigmas associated with suicide. And me, someone who has lost multiple relatives. I had a third cousin who had 9,000 skydiving jumps. Didn't pack a chute on his last one. It's just one of those things that I'm thinking there's heritability, there's genetics, there's all of these different things that play into the space. And then I look at my kids and I'm like, how do I have this conversation with these 2 little humans who I love dearly and who are also affected by this family and this situation? And so to me, it is about being more out loud. It is about being more vocal in the space, and it is also about really recognizing that these are individual decisions people make, and very few decisions you can't come back from. This one happens to be one. Do I fault people for their decisions? Almost never. Almost never, right? And so same thing. My dad, um, I don't have any ill will at all towards how he went out. I hope he found peace. I do. And I really, really, more than anything, I want my family to know that it's okay to talk. It's okay to be in that space. It's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay to be, um, you know, uh, affected in that particular way. And I can't say that I've ever been to that point of depression in my life. I haven't been to that point, but I know for a fact I could get there. I know for a fact that it's a real thing. I know for a fact it affects all of us differently, but it affects all of us. It's a
The
human thing.
the thing when you, because what I like what you're uncapturing in the book, not to say it's justified, but when you look at your grandma and her husband died, so you could say that was profound grief.
Mhm.
But when you describe your aunts and your uncles, or your father and your uncle and your I when you described her, I could see, because everyone knows they got two brothers and the sister controls the boys all the time. She's like the glue, and she would just like the way you described when he got his hug, and when he sat there when he walked in, and he was like, "Do I run or do I stay? I don't know what to do," because she's obviously smaller, but that's the way sisters are. But then when you look at it, it's like, well, you have that. The family is together, even though you do stuff. Why would you take yourself out when you have a support system? Whereas popular common sense, not common sense, but popular sentiment is you do it because you're alone, because you don't have anyone, you don't have siblings you can talk to. But
Yeah.
so far, these everyone you described had a whole network of people who loved each other. So that's where it's another level that I think you're going into, the loneliness while you're with everyone else that you know love you, that looks like you. So that's the intriguing part. I mean, what you're doing is amazing, because I know it's you must be going into deeper levels of your heart and soul to answer these questions that everyone's like, well, why would they do this when I got a family where no one loves me and I didn't do it, but you got a family with everyone who loves you and you have jobs and you have money and you know, that's the perplexing
It,
thing.
it's
So
hard. It's hard to be human. It just is.
yes,
It that at the end of the day, that's just where it lies, and we need to hold each other in this heaviness together, and we need to not be scared to talk about it, even though you're afraid of the words to say. I mean, in some spaces, it's like, oh, you don't say that word, and we're in our opinion, we have to say suicide. Unfortunately, it's something that we've had to deal with so many times that we don't have the luxury of being quiet about it. And that's really when we go to bed, we hit our pillows at night. It's just like, you need to speak up. There's somebody out there that needs to hear this. There's something. And, we believe in breaking cycles, speaking things, breaking the chains that hold us all down, whether that's, in your family ancestry or, just patterns in life. It's important.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, JC. And something that stands out as I listen to you two and watch the two of you interact is that you guys are clearly a team, right? I think you're fortunate, Matt, in that you have a partner
Very fortunate.
who can,
blessed.
yeah,
I
bless.
pulled all the words out of him. Oh, I mean,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
make a joke, not really a joke, but when his dad died, like his mother came to me immediately and was just so worried because she's like, I'm afraid Matt's not going to talk about things, and in my head, I'm just like, well, anybody that's near me is going to talk about everything because that's just how I am. We're
Yeah,
going to talk it all
yeah,
out, and that's what
right.
he's done. And yeah, it's changed his life.
Yeah, and I think that's key. So for those that are listening to this podcast and watching on YouTube, this book I think is a great entry into that conversation, right? Our Darlin John. Again, it creates that opportunity for individuals who have experienced something similar or have fears, perhaps, of experiencing something similar, to start having that discussion. Ideally, they have a partner like yourself, JC. But here's the question. So, in your experience, because you've experienced this in some capacity for 2 decades or so, right? What advice do you have for someone who is perhaps contemplating suicide, someone who has experienced a relative or a friend that's committed suicide? What's your advice to them in terms of how to get on the other side of that?
So 988 is number one, right? If you are in crisis, if you are actively in crisis, if this is something that you are considering currently, there are tools. There are people out there that are ready to talk to you, that are way more qualified to speak into that particular phase of your life than even myself. Um, and I'd like to say, I've been to the school of hard knocks, right? I didn't have all the answers on the front end. I don't have all the answers now. I I am an active participant in the conversation because I want to help you. I want to help humans be human. I want you to feel safe in this space talking to me. I might not have the best EQ. I might not have the most um, you know witty or intelligent thing to say, but I will talk to you in this space. We
Yeah.
will talk to you. Our book will speak to you in this space. Our words come from a very difficult place, but it is a message of hope. It's a love story, and we love these people. Back cover of our book, we have. I'll throw that up there, but we have a quote.
Those we've lost.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
you
Those
read.
we lost and carry with us. May their ghosts haunt us gently. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, back to the, what can people do? It's like, I think that we truly have to know that there is no alone in this. It's easy. I mean, especially now. We feel alone. We make ourselves alone. We can carve out a hole that only we exist in, but that's just not the truth. We are all so connected in this human experience. And find someone, whether it's at your work or on the interwebs. There is power in knowing that you're not going through anything that nobody else has gone through. I mean, I like to bring myself up. I'm a light worker. I'm bright. I want to help people heal. But guess what? I deal with my mental health. These are things that I myself, who have overcome, and I talk to people and, want to hold your hand through this. I myself still struggle. And so, really, all our answers are we don't really know. It's just we have to lean on each other, whoever it
Yeah.
is. And there is not room for any judgment. We just don't have time for that. And there's no place, just knowing that this is something that happens to us all, no matter, what your life looks like.
Mhm. Something you said that's a great statement. And we usually say when we hear great statements like these, it would make a great t shirt, but it's bigger than a t shirt. It's hard to be human. And what this book does, from what I read, what I skimmed, and from what Smiley shared, it humanizes this process, this challenge, the stigma that goes along with suicide. It is hard to be human, and we can't do it by ourselves. I'm so glad you said that. So, Smiley, next time you see me crying on your shoulder, leave me alone, dude. Let me cry on your shoulder. Don't be pushing my head off. Let me, be my partner in that.
But the thing that I think is so amazing is it's so well written that I can't wait for this to end to go finish the rest of the chapters because it's like what's happening, and then it's like it's my wife is like, why are you so excited to read about suicide? You said it was about suicide, and she's like, I don't want to read that, and I was like, but what are you laughing for? I was like, it's more than suicide. It's like a family, and you feel immersive, and you go back to that time, or even the camping. Man, the bees I almost fell out my chair laughing about the bees.
That was
There's
true
so
too.
many.
Oh, that's true.
It's just like there's so many things. It's just like it takes you back to when you were a kid in the woods or hunting or doing whatever you did when you were younger. And we're around the same age, so I can relate to a lot of things you're mentioning. But it's just it humanizes it in a way, and then you get a zinger of the death. But then again, it's the how did a family come together with the two funerals. I was like, that was so cool. And JC, you really come out there in the sense that I think it was said, and I'm going to misquote it, but it was like, I really didn't want to talk, but she knew I had to talk. So we talked all the way back, which is like 2 hours. because she was in tune, almost like an empath. You was able to feel that he had to talk. And you just mentioned that your mother said, I'm afraid he's not going to talk. So that just ties pieces back to the book that you're reading. And I'm just like, it definitely humanizes, but it brings attention to it, but it pulls in a whole bunch of the other aspects of the mental preparation of saying a eulogy. When my father died, I knew I had to talk, but I was like, I'm not thinking about it till I walked up the stairs in the pulpit. But then I like the way you systematically said, well, no, this isn't a good story. No, this isn't a good story. This was you know what? It's just like you see that process that people go through whenever someone passes and you love them. And they have a lot of people who love them, but still you have to go through the process. You have to digest it. So I think this book is going to be a bestseller. I think you're on your way to having your own podcast, because I haven't seen any podcasts talking specifically about the Internet of Things of suicide, or the Internet of Relations and Emotions, IOE, Internet of Emotions, around emotional topics like this. So like I said, I can't wait to finish reading it. I'm gonna buy it. All right, is it listed on Amazon? I'm gonna buy it, so when I see you, you can sign it for me.
So far, it's on our website. We have the ebook available and the paperback available on our website. So
all right, we'll include that in our show notes so we can have it there.
And I also want to add, just talking about this, it's just, I'm overcome all the time with imagery that there's always light in all the dark situations. Always. We have to look for it. And sometimes you have to be the light bearer for your people. Sometimes you're the one that can see the hope through it. And for me, getting to witness, all of the souls and the family and just this huge legacy of a great family, kind of come through this way and come out of tragedy, and we want to make something good about it, and we have to be proud at the end of the day of what we do for our children, and that is bringing light to some really, really hard stuff.
Well, before we go into the final four, I want to plant a seed with you and Matt, because Matt said something, but I don't think he thought I picked it up. You said that Uncle John doesn't believe that your father committed suicide. That's another book. I mean, you said you didn't want to get into conspiracies, but I just want you to know that that's sequel 2 or book 2, or if a theme is on John, because he slipped that in there, and I was like, well, that's not apropos to the topic today, but that seems like another book there because you slid that in there. So I'm eager to hear why or whatever, but we'll save that for the next one. But
there's another book in the works.
Awesome. So before we get into the final four for Jacey and Matt, were there anything that we didn't ask you that we should have asked you that you wish we'd have brought up, or some society or about suicide or anything there we should talk about before we go into final four?
So yeah, definitely resources are available. And the important thing for us is we really appreciate you allowing us to have a platform to have this conversation. It's a big conversation. It's a lot. Like you've even mentioned, your wife doesn't want to read a book about suicide. Yeah, that's the barrier we got to crack, right? We want to be able to try to break that down a little bit, and we want your wife hearing you laughing in the other room. We want your wife asking those questions. And at the end of the day, we really want people to understand this story it's not grief eating. It's not a misery memoir. It's not anything like that. It is a love story. It is a family story. It is a people story. It's just humans. And these people were very real. And they were very, very loved. And we, to this day, are very fortunate that they were in our lives, and I think if this book does anything, if it opens anyone's mind to the conversation, if it helps anybody in any particular way, we're super excited, and I know for a fact it's helped me, and so I'm very fortunate to have been a part of the project, and I'm super lucky that my wife has helped me through this whole thing. So,
well, thank you once again for sharing this difficult topic. So as we move into the final four, I don't know. Well, this is one we always ask, but we usually say the first final four, alive or dead, who would you want to have dinner with and why?
Yeah.
For both of you.
Hard. You go first.
Turing probably. I would say
Beautiful name.
Alan Turing, probably, just because I'm kind of a computer fan, and he's really kind of the father of modern computation and all of that.
Hold up. In the book, there was a word you used because when it went from the light to it was terabin or something like that, some sort of art style. He sent me to the dictionary. Was it terab? Yeah, I was like, what does that mean? I read the context, so then I looked it up. I was like, dude, the way you describe that from your grandma's artistic, I'm telling you, this is a very well written book. It was like,
Proof too. That is
yeah.
We can pull out some art and show you. Like this is what she did before.
Wow.
I mean, he captures so much moments. He's just like, man, you just see the change. I'm sorry, I messed up the final four a little bit.
No,
I'm sorry,
you're
Dre.
good, man. This is good.
But-
This is good.
We'll take all your compliments.
Yes, no, Tenebrism.
Mine probably would be Frida Kahlo. I admire her a lot. I always have. Her artistic style, and just being so honest in her emotions. There's one of her paintings that depicts her in a bathtub, and I'll just let you look it up and see, but it sums up just a lot of really heavy feelings as a woman, and kind of her place in the world. So I would probably say Frida.
Okay. I'm going to do a slight pivot and ask you, what do you hope, or what do you believe would be the best compliment you could receive related to this book? That's for both of you.
If it gets banned in Florida.
That's another T-shirt. Banned in
it.
Florida.
You know you have something on your hands. You know you got something to work with.
We know we've struck the right chords.
Right, exactly. Okay, JC.
Yeah, the biggest compliment to me would be someone saying, I'm not sure I would know how to talk about that. Or I'm not even sure I could talk about that. Just honestly making someone uncomfortable enough to kind of get out of that. That would be a compliment to me.
Okay.
Regarding
And
this,
take healing on as a self journey, because it is. It really is. It is your job to heal yourself and to heal your people. And people need you. And we all need to be operating at our best.
as you step out and be vulnerable on this difficult topic called suicide, and writing a book, which just means you're really, because now you're opening yourself up to the world of critics and etc. What was the best advice in this journey of writing a book that you received that just says, you know what, I got to do it, or I'm going to continue to write it, or what was the best piece of advice you received?
Oh,
Got any? I'm not sure we got any advice. Honestly, it's been interesting. I mean, a lot of people are very timid to talk about it, even in our own life. So we're kind of being the big, loud, noisemakers about it. So,
yeah, the advice topic is interesting, right? We come from a place where stuff is swept under rugs.
or just give it to God,
Generally speaking, your prayer pile is pretty big and your rug pile is pretty big, right? You shove some stuff under the rug and then you pray for the other stuff, and then you hopefully somewhere it balances out. But we feel that that's not the approach here. We feel like we've got to be a little bit more out, and part of that is breaking the barriers or the walls that were put up in my childhood with that particular family, saying, no, these are the things you can't discuss. This is the things that are off limits. But if these things are always off limits, then we're going to continue to see 800,000 of these a year. We're going to continue to see 1 in 5 people affected. We're going to continue to shame or judge or misplaced feelings, even if they're not necessarily there, but you make an offhanded comment about, oh, he went out selfishly, you know, um, it's a very weird thing to experience firsthand when, I'm sitting here living, breathing example of somebody whose dad went out selfishly, right? Um, and so it's a situation where I want people to be comfortable. I want I want people to be upfront about the conversations. And um, my upbringing was be quiet, and so don't talk about that stuff. No one
So
wants to hear
our
about
advice
that.
is be loud.
Okay.
Love
So
it.
along that same vein, there you mentioned your dad. Ending on a high note, tell me your fondest memory of your dad. And JC, you can share as well if you have any memories of Matt's dad. We'll start with you, Matt. What's your fondest memory of your dad?
Man, I tell a few stories in the book that are all 100% true. Uh, but one of my fondest memories, we were in Texas, and we were going to a shooting range, and we had pulled off the road. We were in big SUV, 4-wheel drive. Loved taking that thing through the mud and driving like idiots. Like I just typical.
Texas guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
typical,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so we ended up burying the expedition to the axle, like just could not get it out. And so we were way off the beaten path, but we had several guns in the car, and we had to walk probably 3-4 miles to the nearest gas station to call a tow truck to get something that could winch us out. And so my dad, he was like, "Well, I don't know what's out here," and he puts a weapon in his pants, and he makes all of us walk. The three of us that were with him, he makes us walk about 15 feet away from him. He absolutely wants us nowhere near him with this weapon, and it's just a ridiculous scenario. Walk 3 miles in the middle of nowhere, Texas, to this gas station, get a tow truck. Finally, 4 hours later, we didn't even go to the shooting.
Was he afraid that what if you might bump him and it would go off? Is that what it was?
Yeah, just blow his leg off or something, and it's just like it's just silly things.
Back up.
Yeah, you got too close. He's like, oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
we had a lot of good times.
Yeah.
We lived pretty hard.
Okay.
Had a lot of fun, and unfortunately, JC never got to meet him in person. We
Yeah.
started dating 2 weeks before that phone call that we got on the swings, and so she only talked to him via phone.
For a few months, he was alive.
Yeah, and he died in September. So
Which is absolutely so heartbreaking, and
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about it in the book, but in his family, the crazy thing is they all look just alike. So his dad looked just like him, and I mean, there's a hole in my heart. I envision a relationship with him, and we have children now. It's been this far along, and one of our kids is named something similar for her grandpa, and so
Okay.
we just I try to keep that alive in my heart. And
Sure.
this book is also, it's a love letter to his family, and I want their story, and I want the love that they shared, and the life that they lived to be lived forever through all of us. So that's why. That's all.
Speaking of the memory of John or Matt and his dad, they do a memory of John and his grandmother, and I think anyone who reads that's going to go to that moment when, especially if you got siblings, where mom made you feel like the whole world was about you. What she did for your Uncle John, I think everyone who reads that, I went back to that moment with my mom because I had brothers. And you got to share your parents with them. But and then I even went back to my granddad. The one time he took me to the Pirates game without my brother. And I was so happy because it was just me and him. And the way you described that with John, I went to my grandma, went to my grandfather, then I went to my mom, all in that one little section because everyone can relate to the time, unless you're an only child. You can relate to the time when you, because if not, you got to share your parents and your uncles and everybody with these other siblings. It's just there always. So that was very, very impactful.
She was an amazing mom. I mean, going back to this apartment in our book are real actual letters that she wrote to her oldest son as an adult, just encouraging letters all the time, just like, oh, get good rest, or I hope this helps you and do this. It's like she covered her family in so much love, and you feel it through her words. I mean, knowing, so I knew Uncle John and I knew Matt's aunt, and the love that they have for each other. They were a very close family, and that's part of the story to tell about this is navigating codependence with the most important people in our life. So, but no, she covered them in love and was an amazing mother, and I mean, it is well documented.
Very well.
Well, I want to thank you, Matt and JC. First, Matt for coming back, and then Matt and JC for having the courage, the vulnerability, the wisdom to share what you've experienced with the rest of the world. I mean, it's just I can't, like I said, I can't wait to get back to the book because there's so many questions, and I mean, it's just I love the way it unfolds like a different layer, and I'm at the part where I can't. Like, where's the clock? Where's the grandfather clock? I'm like, there's no way. There's something missing there. So I can't wait to find out where this clock is and the watch. I'm like, what's going on here? I feel like I was violated. So anyway, but well, thank you again. We appreciate you.
So much for having us. We are just absolutely honored that you had us and let us speak about this.
Very much
Sure.
so.
Thank
Thank
you.
you both, Dre, Smiley.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
And for those listening, just want to remind everyone the number for the suicide hotline is
988.
988.
988.
Thanks again for being on the show.